Thanks very much for coming to our session today in lovely Budapest. And first of all, I'd like to thank EFDN for hosting the Tackling Colourblindness in Sport panel session. So my name's Catherine Albany Ward, and I am the founder and I run the Colourblind Awareness Organisation. And today we're going to talk about colourblindness and the prevalence of colourblindness in elite sports people. Now, this has come about as a result of our Tackling Colourblindness in Sport project, which is a 3-year project, and it's just about coming to its end. So tonight is the culmination of 3 years' hard work. And the project was set up with 2 main aims. One was to prove how many people are colourblind in sport in general, and the other was to create resources for you guys to be able to distribute amongst your contacts. So the partners of the project are on the screen behind me. I'm not going to run through who they all are, but they've all been brilliant. And what I wanted to talk to you about, first of all, was to give you some context, because I know quite a lot of you won't know anything about colourblindness. So that's because 1 in 12 men are colourblind, or boys, and 1 in 200 females are colourblind. So it's quite a lot of people when you think that a football squad is 11. So it's quite likely that every football squad, there's going to be at least 1 colourblind player. And our research has found that that is in fact the case. And if our research is extrapolated for the World Cup, we know that there are going to be about 50 colourblind players at the World Cup. The first thing I'd like to do is to ask everyone on the panel to introduce themselves to you. So can we start first with you, James?
Yeah, good evening. So my name's James Chiffey. I'm Head of Wellbeing and Development at Swansea City Football Club, and also the founder of Beyond the White Line, which is a human-first, not-for-profit, looking to drive systemic change in sport.
Hello, good evening. My name is Francisco Araújo, and I'm Head of CSR of Portuguese Football Federation.
Hi everyone, my name's Adam Bibby. I'm from Oxford Brookes University, and I'm a senior lecturer.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Douglas. I'm Game Research and Development Manager at World Rugby, and I'm a former FIFA assistant referee.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Bignall. I was a former football player, and I did have colour blindness, well, I still do, so I can just talk upon some of the issues that I had when I was playing.
Thanks, everybody. So I think we should probably start by talking about the prevalence of colourblindness, which hopefully is actually a shock to all of you, that you wouldn't have known how many people are affected in sport. So first question to Nick.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for being in our video.
No problem.
So you knew that you were colourblind, but all through your playing career, did you ever come across any other people that you knew were colourblind?
No, but then there was quite clearly people that were colourblind, so it just speaks to the fact that people don't talk about it unless someone like yourself is really pushing the issue, because it took about 13 years for me to speak up, and that was only when I was in the first team, so I had a bit of power to start making changes to sessions and saying that I can't see these colours, can you please change it? But that was at 20, and I started playing football at 7, so it took a long time to even speak up.
Thanks. Could I just say to people at the back, please, it's quite noisy up here. Would you mind either going further to the back so we can't pick the noise up? Hubert. Not you, but can you pass the message on, please? So we know that there are a lot of players out there, and we know that they don't speak up.
Yep.
Adam's done a lot of research on this for the project. What were you finding, Adam, in terms of the research?
Yeah, so we've been doing some screening with professional football clubs across a range of different countries. So with international senior squads, with professional football clubs within the UK, and also in Iceland as well. In terms of prevalence, we've actually found, out of the 118 that we've screened so far, that 7 of those individuals at the highest level within football have some form of colour vision deficiency. So if we're looking at percentages, that's around 6%. And if we're thinking about what is the actual normal percentage, that's a lot higher, so that's around 8%. So what that is suggesting that in every kind of football squad of around 25 people, there's about 1.5 individuals within those squads who are colourblind. At the same time, if we're not seeing the same prevalence within elite sport, it's suggesting that actually people aren't making it to the top. So we need to provide support for those individuals to allow them to actually excel.
And Francisca and James, both your organisations are now screening or have screened for colour blindness. So obviously you find it as an important topic that you need your players to be supported. James, would you like to tell us your thoughts on what you found out?
Yeah, I think, it became clear the numbers statistically were, suggested that there may be 1 to 2 players within each squad. With our club, it turned out to be accurate, and there were players that not only were colourblind and struggling, to be honest, or had cited that they've struggled at times during their career, but we've become now aware of players that are no longer, with our organisation or with others who never raised it. They didn't bring it to anyone's attention. They feared the consequences of doing that, and it had a bigger impact. But I think for us, the screening should be standard, and it is now for us. But it's allowed us to adapt the environment, which I'll be careful not to go on to, but adapt the environment to improve the experience and opportunity for everyone involved.
Thanks. And Francisca, obviously, you're in the process of screening your players at the moment. And how did that get, when you raised the topic, how was that received at the Portuguese FA? Was it a shock about the prevalence?
No, we started this talking with the coaches, and they were aware of this topic. They know some players that are colorblind. Then we talk with the medical staff, because they are responsible for everything that happens to the players when they are on the national teams. And they want to work with us on this and to implement the screening in every national team. But we expect to have high numbers because the study said so.
And speaking of high numbers, then Mark, in rugby the squads are even larger. So we're expecting 2 to 3 players in every male rugby squad. Do you think, so rugby is catching up on the journey of the awareness that we've created initially in football, and World Rugby really thrown themselves into supporting colourblind people, and mainly because of player welfare. So do you think that the statistics that we're finding in elite football will have an impact in getting rugby players and rugby unions keener to identify who the rugby players are who might be affected? Do you think it will have a knock-on?
Yeah, so for France 2023 next year, the squad sizes are 23 per team. For 20 teams, that's 650 odd players. I think we're coming at a slightly different perspective than everybody else in the panel, in that we don't have direct contact with players. We manage the sport, we manage competitions. So I think our role in that is education, raise awareness, and to support anybody who wants to do more. And I think through the guideline that we've published last year, we're very much in a place in a place where we're going to do that. It's going to take time. I think even from our own competitions, there's terms of participation that have been signed years ago, so we can't just affect change as quickly as we'd like. But we're slowly getting to the point where we're going to make sure that our guidelines are followed within our own competitions, and hopefully that will trickle down to other competitions as the awareness grows.
So in terms of the players that are affected and how they react to being colourblind, we know at Swansea that when we screened some of the players, some were willing to speak up and others still haven't, because it was an anonymous screening. Some still haven't even identified themselves to you so that you can support them. So how are you going about that in the club to make sure that all of the players are supported, even if you don't know who they are?
Yeah, we made it clear, with yourselves, we made it clear to the players from the beginning that they didn't need to identify if they are colorblind. We don't need to know fundamentally, because it's our responsibility to educate the coaches, educate all stakeholders that come into contact with the players, and also change the environment. So we've adapted the environment, as basic as balls, bibs, cones, and anything like that. When session planning, coaches now will plan sessions with that in mind to ensure that any risk of clash or risk for anyone that might be colorblind to impact that session, they're doing it in a preparatory way, and they're preventing it being an issue. So quite frankly, as a result of the work that we've done with yourselves and we're continuing to do, all players will be screened, potentially now coming in as standard to help encourage, raise awareness around this and education around this. But fundamentally, it makes no difference, because if you come into Swansea City Football Club now, at any level, men's and boys, women or girls football, it doesn't matter. There will be equipment and sessions designed so that the environment is inclusive.
That's exactly what I want to hear. But Nick, that must be music to your ears, even though you're not still playing football, to know that clubs are now starting to understand what you went through and put mitigation in place.
Yeah, just changing a few things can make a big difference. If you're training that hard to play football and then the coach puts in two colours that are close together, it literally means that you don't have an opportunity to show your skills, and it's a bit of a blow, to be honest. All that you had to do is maybe change some bibs and have a bit of recognition that there might be an issue, but then that's a problem in itself, because it took so long for me to speak and it takes a long time for other people to speak. Without the awareness, the kids, especially the kids, are just gonna not say anything, and then one day you might just find that they don't like football anymore, or they just turn really bad and you don't know why. A couple of years down the line, you could find out that they had problems seeing different colours, and it could have been changed quite simply. So I think it is a really good change.
And Adam, what your questionnaires of coaches and players revealed was quite interesting in terms of how players felt and what coaches thought they needed to know.
Yeah, definitely. I think the coaches mentioned that there was a lack of awareness. So they just didn't know what colour blindness was. They didn't know the changes that James mentioned that could be made. In terms of the players, they also mentioned that they don't like to actually reveal the fact that they are colourblind, potentially because of contract negotiations, even embarrassment as well. So there's a huge kind of mental health kind of implication there. Also a little consideration around, as Nick mentioned, in terms of dropout from sport. So if you've got those individuals who are youth, we want people to engage in physical activity. So we're not just looking at the highest level, but also engaging people for the physical benefits of exercise, obviously for the social benefits, and also for the mental health benefits as well.
And that's the same with rugby, I assume, Mark, that you want to retain players and...
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that it's a full contact sport means we need to make sure that James hit the nail on the head and created an environment where players can perform and be sure of what they're doing. Because if you're not sure who your teammate is or who your teammate isn't, you could get hit from when you're not expecting it, and that's obviously a player welfare issue. It's funny though, one of the things I noticed since we started this project about 2 years ago, the amount of people within World Rugby who have come up to me saying, oh, I'm colourblind, which I never would have known previous to that, is absolutely astronomical. Not that there's a huge number of them, but it's just the people you would never expect it to just in your day-to-day life, that there's a little bit more awareness around the office even, and people are coming across and sort of discussing their experiences as well. So.
And Francisca, you found that too, didn't you?
Yeah, regarding the involvement of the stakeholders, as James mentioned, we started to involving football players, famous people, so that we get the attention of the press in our country, and then we start with the different units of the FA, the persons, my colleagues that work on event management that have different roles in the different contacts with the stakeholders, and internally with the sports unit, the medical office, so because we will expect to make the difference in the end. So,
James, you want to say something a minute ago?
Well, it kind of covered all of that, but it was the mental health element as well. I think we underestimate the impact this has on players' mental health and potentially then that impact and over time on your organizations. You know, if we're looking at an elite sport environment, you could argue that potentially one of your greatest assets, if that's how you view it, you know, isn't able to perform at the highest level, is also having these challenges away from the game with their mental well-being, stuff like that. So it all wraps up into one. We underestimate all of these things. Like, to some people, it may not seem a significant piece of the puzzle, you know, sort of 1.5 players per squad. But these are human beings that are in, you know, who this is their job, this is their chosen career pathway. I think it's a huge thing to overlook. Yeah.
And to think, I've obviously have a lot to say about colour blindness in sport, and I'm trying to be very quiet and let everyone else have a talk today. But from the very beginning, I got a lot of resistance with people saying to me that colourblind people didn't actually appear in elite sport in any numbers. So now we know that's not actually true. They do appear in significant numbers. I said at the beginning that extrapolating the research, we know there'll be 50 players in the World Cup. In fact, in 2002, there are 3 players that I actually know of who were colourblind, and they played for 3 different teams, and they played against each other in the World Cup. So they are there in the World Cup, and they are there at grassroots and all the way through. And what we all need to do is try and make sure that we pull them all, as many as possible, right the way through the system so everyone gets equal access to the game. I think I've got to wrap up now, so sorry, it's a short session, but thanks to all the panellists. For those people who are watching online, we'll catch up with you for some Q&A in a minute. And for those people who are in the room, you've got an opportunity to try out the socks over there and the glasses for yourselves a bit later on, once we've closed the session. And also the panellists will be around once we've done the online Q&A session to answer any questions that you might have. And tomorrow, I think we're going to get a QR code put up on the screen behind. So tomorrow we're going to do a short session to talk about the resources that we've created. But if you want a sneak peek, if you use the QR code behind you, you can see all the resources that we've created as part of this project and have a look at Adam's research results as well. Thanks very much. Enjoy the evening, and thanks again to EFDN for hosting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.